Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Broadcast.gg's coverage of South American Contenders. This is the English coverage, and I'm back on the desk with LaFon Naori. We just got done seeing base tryhards taking 4 more map score victories, going up in their series record 2-0 over Quad Gaming, and now we have your second match of the day. The second match today is none other than Caverna Esports versus the Suquinho Nation. TSN, as we'll go ahead and say them before I continue to stumble over the garbage juice that is that middle bread or the middle sandwich of their name, looked pretty darn good last week. Me, LaFon, we were very impressed with them, I would definitely say. But I want to focus more on their adversaries, Caverna. Caverna had to face base tryhards last week, but they had a decent amount of bright spots, more importantly through their main tank. LaFon, last week, we saw a little bit of hero pool synergistic issues coming through this team. Did you want to expand off that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we talk about a lot here as analysts is hero pool synergy, hero pool flexibility, and hero pool consistency. One of the issues that Caverna had is that they didn't have any of those. There was a lot of times where Silvera was playing the off tank, they would switch to a Doomfist if they weren't using it, and all over the place. Like, one of the things that we talk about is that if you're playing a hero and then you switch to a different hero or a different role, you change up how the entire team plays around you. And I think for Caverna last week, it was more of a problematic thing than a positive. So if I'm Caverna, I'm kind of questioning, or if as a viewer, I'd be questioning if they're going to be consistent here today. So there's a lot of question marks. They're going up against possibly the second best team in this group, and they didn't have any. They got the short end of the straw last week against the best team in the group, and I think for them, this is definitely a question mark time for it.
Definitely. Yeah, 100%. I think something that we talk about a lot as well, flexibility. We spoke about it a lot on BTH, the last game that was played. Being able to swap onto different heroes as and when the opportunity arises, being able to counter pick against your opposing team, and just being able to expand your hero pool, how important that is. But in that same vein, as LaFon said, when you're constantly swapping up between not just heroes but roles, it can really create some dissension between you and your fellow teammates, because the mindset of a DPS player is completely different to that of an off tank, and to have to try and swap between those mindsets consistently throughout a match, it just gets way too confusing. So yes, flexibility, having a large hero pool, big up. Swapping between roles all the time, over and over again, in between maps, during maps, probably not the best idea.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just where Overwatch is at, right? You have in-game leaders, you have shot callers, you have ult trackers too, that when you start putting that on a certain role, and then you switch that up in the middle of a game, it creates a certain amount of difficulties. But going against the adversaries of TSN, LaFon, they 4-0'd Predators last week. They looked very good all around, main tank all the way back to their support line. What can we expect from them this week around?
I think more stellar gameplay. This is a team that I have really high hopes for. I have them as the second best team in this group, and I think they're going to stomp through. My main impression has been Lubok, Delavinia, and Yules have been fantastic. The main tank play from Yules has been absolutely stellar. He's been downright cocky in a way that a lot of players aren't, and I think is much better for it.
Absolutely. Well said. And continuing on with the wonderful castings today, we have a second pair for you all. Next match is starting here momentarily. Your casters today are being thrown to them. Labasco, Hirix, please take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Panda, Naori, and LaFon. Great desk as always. I am Labasco, my partner for today. For the first time, I finally get to cast with Hirix. Glad to be on this cast with you, and we have a good one for us. Caverna, who comes in 0-1, lost to base tryhards, the top team of this group over Team Suquinho Nation. We know that our map, of course, is going to be Ilios here again. So as far as expectations, what should we have here for this?
Probably some version of Ana Goats, maybe Zen Goats, but I think I'm primarily expecting versions of a dive version of Goats. And this is something that both of these teams brought out on Busan last time around. We saw them last week. Both teams did like to play this. This is also something that some teams actually did opt for as well, going into Ilios specifically. We can see a lot of different looks from these two teams on this first map, but I would expect at some point to see Winston involved in some of these 3-3 type compositions.
definitely looks like Ruins is going to be our first one that we're going to end up going to as well here. So when you think about that as a map, that's a map where you can see a little bit more of some of those different style comps as far as, Widowmaker Ruins has always sort of been a playground for them.
Absolutely, and we've even seen Widow play being brought out this week already, and it is something that can be pretty consistent as well. We already saw Lowlife looking very, very proficient on that, and it can become a problem for teams that are even running GOAT-style compositions that typically have the shields to deal with it.
And when you talk about the shields that there might be for the side of Caverna, Chwazu was one of those standout players from last week. How do they need to enable him on the side of Caverna?
Well, for Caverna, I think one thing that is really going to help them going forward is creating an identity, because I think that's something that really has been a standout for their team, along with, a couple of these other teams that have been struggling as of late. Even, that first week, Isra struggled from this as well, but they were able to bounce back. And I'm looking for the same thing with Caverna. Find an identity, and something that they can do is exactly that. They can start enabling their tank line, and if they can do that, that would really, really be a big benefit to them over time, because I think Chwazu is actually someone that would be very, very dominant in this meta. But the problem is that going off of what our analysts have said, we have a lot of swapping going on. Who's playing the Diva, and then obviously Cappy is going to be the one playing the Zarya most often. We see some Doomfist play coming out as well, but I think some consistency in some regard would actually go a long way for this team.
And then conversely, on the other side, Team Suquinho Nation is a team that sort of has an identity, it seems like, already at this point. They looked so good in their week 1 matchup, but obviously they want to continue their dominance and stay at the top with the team who just won the last game in base tryhards. And we can see here they're kind of showing that maybe, obviously doors aren't going to open just yet, but they might go here with the what we saw from them before, where they will go with those dive tanks here in Ruins.
And this is actually a different even look from Caverna here as well, where Maka is actually going to be on the Zarya, Cappy is going to be the Brig, and Silvera is going to stay on the Diva. So another iteration of Caverna's lineup being proposed here once again. And Suquinho, on the other hand, very consistent. It's Lubak on that Widowmaker.
We'll see if they can find some consistency, at least for the side of Caverna. Neither team controlling the point as of right now. Lubak looking through those sight lines, just looking for a place to get some headshots on, going up onto the pillar on top, gets forced off by the Diva nicely, but falling first to Darkin will be the Zenyatta, and Kello will find Delavigne. So it's still pretty even here on either side as this fight continues here, but Darkin still pushing forward on that Diva, and control will go to Suquinho Nation.
And what happens when you do have some kind of disconnect there and that lack of consistency is you see parts moving without being in conjunction with one another, right? We saw the main tank and Maka going forward and trying to deal with Lubak. They didn't even actually get the kill, and yet their backline just got swallowed up because they didn't have that protection of the Reinhardt. They didn't have the protection of the Zarya. So now we're seeing a complete swap up where now they're going to probably continue to have that aggression towards Lubak. But if Lubak expects this here, he can continue to rotate away from them, and they can continue to just keep putting that pressure onto Chwazu.
And will open up opportunities for his tanks and Jules, and Darkin stunned out is Silvera. Close to falling, self-destruct will find the Zen again, and Negofist getting Silvera out of mech, so already going pretty well. Had some ultimates used here as well, but not going to matter. Transcendence keeps everybody alive for Suquinho, and they force back Caverna again.
It's a matter of time here before Mac is going to be able to bring out this Graviton Surge, but Bosco, I'm not sure what they're going to be able to get with it. The Suquinho Nation, they're playing a composition that's going to be very well spread apart. So I don't know what kind of value you're going to find other than Jules, who has the ability to reset.
They do use the Graviton Surge into this fight, but a nice use of the Sound Barrier keeps everyone alive. Self-destruct does manage to find Negofist, and then they get Delavigne down, so this might be enough for them to maybe get onto this point and get control. Maka finds Jules as well, and it looks like this is a losing battle for the side of Suquinho Nation.
Still, well played by Suquinho at the beginning there. They just got too many people caught into that initial Graviton. If it was just Jules, which was the intention, they would have been able to get that Sound Barrier off. They would have had the reset on the Primal Rage as well. Now Suquinho Nation going for that really aggressive take. They're going to go for the retake opportunity on just straight going with that Dotes composition that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, they have Lubak switching over to that Brigitte, and now Maka getting pretty low, but is able to use the ball to keep himself alive. Darkin manages to get Cappy Mac with the self-destruct, though. Suquinho Nation with that good pick. A lot of frontline pressure already gone. Transcendence used into the Graviton Surge that was thrown into this fight by Maka Delavigne onto Choazu as they now can start advancing back forward towards the point. They're already up to 75% as well, so if they can get this one taken here, barely maybe even 45% will be on the board for Caverna.
Something we saw on Thursday with this map was the ability to go aggressive with the Zengoat style, but Caverna needs to learn how to get that disengage going because they are just being ripped to pieces at the moment, and Suquinho Nation definitely taking advantage of that by getting their a retake of their own. And also, look at the pacing of Delavigne versus Snail as well. Delavigne is going to have that Graviton, and Caverna won't have an inherent answer outside of the sound barrier to be able to sustain through that, and Suquinho can win that battle over time.
And if Callum will probably have it when the fight starts, but if they throw a preemptive one, he might not quite have it just yet. Does just get it up here now. Out comes the Graviton, self-destruct into it. Sound barriers used on either side, and the self-destruct gets the damage through anyways with everybody that was fighting on into that. Overtime meter starting here, but it doesn't matter. Selvaria falls, and nobody's going to be able to get back here onto the point.
And that was, I think, the biggest, probably the best way that we could explain the difference between these two teams coming into this matchup, Suquinho Nation versus Caverna here, is just the clinical execution that we saw there from Suquinho and the lack thereof from Caverna. As we saw, they just had a couple of opportunities where they could have had clean disengages and they might have been able to take some better fights when they actually did have control, Caverna that is. Whereas Suquinho, when they're in the driver's seat, they look every bit the part, right? They look every bit the part of that. They are just completely in control, and they will not let that go without a fight. And you can see the execution that they had initially where they had that setup. The pacing from Delavigne versus Snail was there. They knew it was there. They took out Snail very early in the last fight. It was very good for them. Now looking forward here, it's that Dote setup from Caverna. It looked good the last map, but Suquinho answering back with just that straight Zen version.
Exactly, and they have the Reinhardt as well. And I think one thing to point out too here, Ix, is even when they were not in control, they were calm, collected, and made the correct switches to take that control. And they're going to take themselves onto the point here at the start for Suquinho Nation, looking for those opportunities for that dive to come in and just swing that Reinhardt hammer in. Very close was the Zen to going down. He's able to back away and stay alive. Lubbock swinging that flail into there, bashing into the Winston, doesn't find him, but that's okay. Delavigno's high charge, and they have control of the point and are already starting to build up into it, and Caverna cannot find a pick yet. That's the biggest problem. They finally do get in and get Ran Kiyoshi down, and now it looks like Caverna will be able to take control of this point, but here comes the Earth Shatter. Jules doesn't want to give this up so easily. They're going to throw the Graviton Surge as well. Jules slowly falling down here, but they still have this control of the point. So 20% they at least get to build up on the beginning, and they caused a lot to be used here.
Bait versus containment. That's exactly the name of the game. Once Orion gets controlled there, it's just up to Choazu to make sure that they can contain them inside until they can have an opportunity to dive in. They managed to do that. Not only that, but they also pull out some really big ultimates. Really good stuff.
And Ran Kiyoshi just getting a pick at the beginning is a huge help to them as well. Already have that 6v5 advantage. They don't have the ultimates here that Caverna does, but they can still advance forward. Have outcome the rally along with the Graviton Surge and the Transcendence. So plenty to keep alive the side of Suquinho Nation. Nego Fist and Maka going down here. Darkin and Lubbock just swinging in is that hammer of Jules. Not getting those eliminations, but he's doing so much damage.
This is just one of those super winnable situations, it feels like. They were able to pull out Jules and Delavigne's ultimates in their first fight. Now, it was just off the back of Rank's ability to just pull out only a Transcendence for them to turn that fight, despite Maka actually getting quite a good setup. Now, going forward into this next one, Delavigne and Maka got to look at the pacing between both of these two as Snail is holding that Transcendence. They should be able to sustain very well with both of their support ults going in right now, long enough for Choazu to actually get that Earth Shatter down real quick here.
Big thing is how does this Earth Shatter do what it can? And it does at least get Maka down, so a lot of damage gone for Caverna Esports. So unfortunate that that sound barrier was as late as it was. It ends up just being a losing fight here. You do have the charge off to the point here, but it's not going to matter.
And that winnable situation, super winnable situation, becomes very, very difficult now because of the aggression that we saw from Darkin. Now we have a situation where Caverna has the Transcendence still, yes, but they don't have that sound barrier backup. They still don't have the Graviton. Delavigne is definitely outpacing Maka at the moment. So really, Choazu needs the setup from Cappy Mac here.
Have to have a good Earth Shatter as well. I think it did, yeah. So Vera did definitely eat that. Oh, and then the Earth Shatter gets blocked from Schwazu, though. Transcendence is going to be committed here. That point gets flipped. In the meantime, while this fight is happening, still everybody alive on either side. Jules is built up to a shatter, and now hits everybody while he's stuck in the Graviton Surge. So this one, Suquinho Nation going to be able to flip back after they get these last couple.
Again, despite the fact that Caverna is going to be able to end this with, 50%, maybe even more than that, it still is Suquinho Nation just constantly looking dominant in every single one of these fights, barely ever giving anything up. And Schwazu now desperate attempt to jump onto the point to contest. The rest of his team going to try to come in behind him.
On that Wrecking Ball, swinging his way around. Now his team starts to trickle back onto the point. Have to back up for a wave for a moment. We're getting low. Darkin looking for an opportunity to use the self-destruct. Self-destruct comes out from Caverna first. Instead, though, from Silvera, didn't find anything with it. Jules built up to another Earth Shatter. Also is the Graviton Surge used here with the self-destruct. So there is kind of an even fight happening for the moment on the point. Chuazu and Kabi Mac trying to get their team back into this. Silvera with the switch round here. And Chuazu able to make this Wrecking Ball work.
Really making it work as well. Snail is the guy I'm looking at because, he's been under fire a lot throughout this matchup, I'd say. And really, I think pulling over to the Moira, creating a more consistent healer, a more, sustained heavy healer to allow for Schwazu, Maka, Silvera to sustain in these fights while they could constantly reposition with the Lucio speed boosting everything. That works out for them, I think. Long term, trying to hold this down for the next 30 seconds, that's going to be difficult, sure. But it, I think, was a good swap in the moment.
Definitely seems to be that way. Halfway to that coalescence, huge use of the pile drive by Chuazu, and he's able to eliminate Rankoshi through it too. So already advantage to the side of Caverna. They're up to 83%, trying to force this to go to a third map. Darkin, though, takes out all that consistent healing we were talking about in Snail, but they do have the mines onto the point here, so have to be very careful. Is Suquinho Nation that they don't get taken out by that. Cal getting Darkin's mech could be one of those things that could spell disaster for Suquinho. The self-destruct from Silvera is able to get Nago Fist. Maka and Kala here cleaning up the fight. Just have to deal with these last few players on, and it looks like we might have a third map. Just avoid the self-destruct from Darkin and quickly take it before he can get to mech.
That should be it. Overtime will tick, and Caverna turning things around. Lebosco, a lot of time you see teams pulling out something like a Sombra Doomfist to answer what is a very, very robust composition, bringing out a Zen Goats or something of that, making, I would say specifically a Doomfist is very strong against that, but certainly the Sombra just empowers it even further. They don't even need that. All they need is Schwazu to be enabled on a Hammond, and that can cause just enough disruption for them to start finding those kills, especially onto the backline where we saw Rank and Negofest actually exposed back there, specifically Rank on that Zenyatta pick. So they're going to go for that once again, this time going for more of a protect the McCree type strategy. Caverna going for one of their own, but it's a different version of it, right? Schwazu going to be bringing out the Orisa. It's going to be more of a static composition. You might see Maka actually going for a couple of flanks, whereas Suquinho Nation is really just going to be kind of going for the bait as often as they can and just pressing into the shield and breaking down that barrier if they can.
Caverna's reminds me of what we just saw base tryhards do in the last map too, when they have the McCree behind that shield and then they could maybe rotate, but they haven't shown that they're doing the rotation. They don't need to though. Callo takes Jules, who had dove in, and already behind right now is Team Suquinho Nation. Have to try and regroup here. Delavigne went on a flank himself and gets caught out here by Silvera, but he is at least kept alive by his team. But control looks like it's going to go to Caverna here at the beginning.
Yeah, and Delavigne needs to kind of create these opportunities. He needs to find these kind of off angles to create different dynamics for threat for Caverna to start trying to worry about and deal with. But you're gonna see that quick rotation. They catch him off guard.
Completely bashed in the faces Delavigne and quickly falls. Oh, they almost gave up the point while they were doing that. They're able to get back here now and eliminate those last few players left alive. Snail starting to come alive on the Zenyatta too.
You cannot tell me that this Caverna does not look different than the version we saw in round one and the version we saw in week one as well. This is a completely different team. You can see they're making on the spot quick adjustments to deal with problems and threats and adapt on the fly. That's something that Caverna has struggled with already.
Amazing decision making for sure. Jules in with the Primal Rage here, sees the sound barrier come out from the side of Caverna. So everybody's going to be alive here at the moment. And Chuazu able to get Darken out of mech, and that will start the snowball again for the side of Caverna Esports. Players just being pushed into the well as it's already up to 56% for Caverna.
And they are looking like they will be unmoving as well going forward. Snail with the Transcendence, they can just sit behind this shield. There's nothing that's going to push them out other than Negafist, but he hasn't been able to get into those positions because Caverna is lying in wait. Cappy has actually been quite good about landing those stunts and warding guys like Jules off right away.
So now they're being forced to have to rotate here, sort of like what we saw just in the last match, and they're doing their rotation well. Ran Kiyoshi gets caught by the halt and thrown into the well. Sail barrier committed in with the self-destruct, though, to try and turn this around for Suquinho Nation. Jules at least takes Cappy Mac down, and Doasu again gets Lubbock into the pit, so completely losing players just to some of these eliminations going in. Doasu on this main tank throws down the supercharger as his team's at 99%. Transcendence in desperation by Ran Kiyoshi keep those last players alive, but it looks like it's not going to matter, and it looks like Caverna is going to be able to get the win here on map number 1. Just have to take Lubbock down.
Wow, overtime right now. We're seeing Jules trying to keep this going. Delavina, he might be able to get onto the point here, and he's just going to drop the grab. Surely that's not going to have any value there, buddy. But nonetheless, you know, looking back at last week, Suquinho Nation, they won 4-0 against Predators. This is the other team at the bottom of the group right now. Caverna and Predators are both tied at that 0-1 spot, 0-4 in map score. Both of these teams, I think, struggled at least going into this as kind of a lack of identity. I would say similar to what we saw from Isurus going into week 1, where it didn't seem like they had their full approach kind of nailed down. Obviously there's reasons behind that for some of these teams, you know, with, you know, the rulings and everything like that going from trials, but nonetheless, I would say these two teams are the teams that have struggled, I think. However, Suquinho Nation beat out Predators and it looked pretty solid, but Predators was one of those teams that was struggling. Caverna now bouncing back in such a big way. Not only are we starting to see, you know, perhaps Suquinho Nation isn't as far away as we thought they were. They aren't as close to base tryhards as we thought they were. But also Caverna, without a doubt, you definitely cannot argue with me at all. This is a different looking team than what we saw last week. And it's a different looking team than what we saw even in round 1. They are bouncing back there, playing off of Chuazu, as you mentioned as well, where they're enabling him a lot more. And on top of that, they're rotating alongside him a lot better as well.
That was definitely one of the things that I noticed, especially as we can see some of the replays are starting to be coming through here in just a moment. But when you talk about Suquinho Nation, luckily for me here, X, I did both of these teams last week. And this is like kind of a night and day for both teams, where Suquinho Nation was the team that looked so good last week that you're like, okay, maybe this is a team that it could push base tryhards. And Caverna played base tryhards last week and didn't look that good. But you know, these couple of changes that they've had to their roster here, maybe making a little bit of a difference. But regardless of that, I mean, identity-wise, it looked like they knew what they wanted to do, at least for Caverna after Ruins.
I think one big adjustment as well, Bosco, is that they're actually leaning on the Zarya a little bit, which is something that Caverna, I would say it was like an anti-thought for them, you know, because last week we saw instances where they would play versions of this kind of 3-3 or goats, whatever you want to call it, and they would play it without Zarya. I mean, I'm talking specifically about, you know, even looking back at the Route 66 play where we saw, you know, Tracer and Ryan being played, but they're playing a Diva alongside the Reinhardt and not the Zarya. And this is something that has come up on occasion throughout these first 2 weeks. However, now it seems like, you know, I brought it up before where Maka is coming in as the Zarya. Typically, that was going to be Cappy in those situations. But with this adjustment, I think they're really kind of hammering away at the idea that perhaps they're going to go for something more vanilla, something more standard, going for that standard style GOAT setup, something more approachable for them, and then focusing on the fundamentals. That's what it seems like to me. It seems like their communication is better, the coordination is better, and realistically speaking, I think that comes off of the fact that they have a much better stand-in for their Zarya in this composition, and they have a little bit more cohesion in that regard, with Cappy being able to communicate as opposed to, you know, numerous different people all at once.
I think that's a good point. When you talk about too, Cappy Mac now is the one who's playing the Brigitte, and that is still such an important role when you talk about the 3-3 composition. I mean, the, Brigitte does so much in a 3-3 comp. I mean, how important is it to have stability there too? I mean, I know we talked a lot about Maka now taking that Zarya role and that being a great thing, but Cappy Mac too now sort of solidifying his role as that Brigitte player in these instances. How important is that?
I mean, I would say that's just as important, if not more important, than the fact that they're bringing in Maka as the Zarya. Also, this creates a little bit, I guess, it creates a trickle-down effect for all of their other compositions, right? Because looking back at last week, it seems like they really like to rely on Maka as the solo DPS. So, you know, in instances where they do want to run him on DPS, or if they do want to run something like versions of that Tracer composition they brought out on Route 66, where they can create, you know, chaos in backlines and stuff like that, there's this effect that, yes, someone else can come through and play the Zarya, but for the most part, everyone still has that kind of standardized role. Yes, we're going to see, you know, Maka, I would say, being more of that DPS role, even when he's on the Zarya, and it's Cappy being the more communicative player alongside Schwazu. And of course, you have the support kind of calling ults and calling those really hits in terms of getting those speed boosts off as well. I think communicatively, this is something that really helps them and will continue to help them long term, because it puts Mac in a role where he is being still DPS. He doesn't have to do as many calls as Cappy Mac, and everything just feels more in line. And you can see how this cohesion is going to really, really step things up for Caverna.
And cohesion is needed on the map that we're going to next here, X. We're going to Nimbani, which is a map where you have a lot of those high grounds, especially on the first point. So there's a lot of different ways that you have to try and attack. So when we talk about Caverna here, this is a map where that communication becomes even more important. Suquinho Nation, obviously the ones with this choices. Let's go back to Suquinho Nation here for a moment. Your thoughts on them picking Nimbani as this next map instead of Hollywood?
Well, it's interesting because if we look back, I mean, Caverna did play BGH last week on Hollywood. Suquinho Nation actually did wind up playing Nimbani. I think this is actually a good pick for them because of the way that they play it. There are two distinct ways that we'll see them play. I think, you know, they're going to favor the dive. Suquinho Nation is going to probably start off with something that's going to be hit scan based, whether it be a soldier or whether it be a McCree. Try to enable that as much as possible. Obviously, that being Maka. But if it doesn't work out, they always have the ability to go to something like that standard GT based dive with an Ana. And of course, GT, I mean Genji Tracer. That's something that they utilized last week as well. You know, I'd be looking at something like that for Suquinho Nation on their attack, should the hit scan startup not work out for them. Remember, Suquinho Nation has, or sorry, not Maka rather, but Suquinho Nation having Delavinia and Lubak. But remember, they don't just have Delavinia, they have Lubak as well. They can obviously start things out here with this Brigitte, but should they need, you know, something else, some other entity, Lubak can obviously switch over to that.
They definitely can. And Caverna here on the defense is going with the Bastion at the start. So really interesting look we're seeing from them, and they have Mac on Soldier.
And this is a good pick. This is going to force a lot of time off the clock already. They don't even have to take a fight because they know Suquinho Nation just as well as I do that they're going to bring out initially this kind of McCree or soldier-based approach. Now we're going to see the dive swap from Suquinho. It's almost as if I scripted this, right?
Right. And now you have Rand Kiyoshi making that switch to Ana, so you get that utility too, that anti-nade you can try and throw on where that Bastion is.
But not only that, Cappy and Maka are both on these. So, I mean, Maka is going to bring the Soldier 76. Cappy's going to get ripped apart as well by Delavine.
Amazing start here for Suquinho Nation. The dive works expertly as Delavigne able to help get Silvira out of mech, and they will quickly take this point at defense, not working too well, and another dash in with the right click by Delavigne to snail.
I mean, beautiful execution there. Everybody was right on spot with the dive. We already saw Maka being dealt or trying to deal with Lubak in the back line on that Tracer. And that's, again, the dual threat combination of Suquinho. This is something that we saw guys like, or teams like Isris having last season. This is something I would look forward to with Suquinho Nation. They can obviously make these really quick adjustments and be huge threats to teams like Caverna.
Keeping calm under pressure, not letting what they see change who they are, is always an important thing to do. Coming back now through the street space, they finally regroup, is Caverna. They, of course, made switches, but so did Suquinho Nation. So both these teams kind of playing a little vanilla right now. They do have the nano boost available for Jules. He jumps in, pushing back the front line of Caverna Esports. No eliminations coming through here. Got that sign in the way there trying to see what's happening, but Darkin in the meantime will find himself a snail in the Zenyatta and take him down, and the cart continuing to just go through this street space so fast.
And once they win this fight, and mark my words, they will win this fight, they will completely just go the distance throughout this second phase of the map, right? I mean, not only did they win that fight convincingly, but they did so by only utilizing 2 ultimates, and they were never contested on the payload by Caverna. Not once were they contested. So Suquinho Nation just waltzed that payload right on through, 1 to 2 man pushing throughout, and now they're moving into the last stage here where Delavinia and Mac are going to have to duel out with these Gravitons.
And they almost have another Nano Boost that'll be available in just a second. Self-destruct thrown in. Silvera's able to get Negovis, but he did get off his sound barrier, so that keeps his team alive for the moment. Looks like they're trying to retreat here. A lot of ultimates committed on either side. Still Transcendence available for Caverna. They haven't been able to pick anyone else off is the only problem. So great regroup coming here for the side of Suquinho Nation.
Oh, and they get a D-Mech though on Darkin.
That's time. That's time right there. That's time bot. Darkin now going to have to come all the way back from respawn. Obviously not going to take too much time, but it's time nonetheless. And not only that, but they're capitalizing.
Massive going in forward here. Maka and Silvria combining to take Delavigne and Jules down. Callow getting his counterpart, Nego Fist. I mean, you know, it looked like they had the regroup there, but they didn't go all the way back to spawn.
Yeah, just being a little bit lethargic, I guess is the best word. Just a little bit too slow on the uptake. Nonetheless, going for the recontest here as they go forward. Rank going to be on the Zenyatta as they're looking to really step up the aggression here.
Earth Shatter available for Choazu in this fight. See when he decides to swing that hammer down. Hasn't found his opportunity yet. Jules still building up. No ultimates yet coming up for the side of Suquinho Nation. A lot though for Caverna. Out comes the Graviton Surge first, and that will be enough to get the wipe to come through for Caverna.
They look fantastic right now. They're obviously not only are they making good rotations, not only do they look more communicative, you can see the display between Lubak and Jules, sure, but you can also see it just as well from Cappy and Choazu. Not even just those two things, but they're not overly utilizing ults. Their ult economy is fantastic so far.
Silvera, though, able to get the self-destruct kill at the start here, so even though they've been good with those management of ults, they haven't had to use too many again. Maybe a couple extra that they use there just to make sure, but Suquinho Nation's ultimates haven't done a thing.
They have been really struggling, and Delavigne as well. He's not going to be able to get anything anytime soon. In the meantime, Maka, I mean, we're going to see Suquinho Nation able to contest for quite a long time in this fight, but they need to find some picks early on.
Transcendence and Sound Barrier committed on either side. Silvera able to fight through that Graviton Surge and eliminate players inside of it that Maka threw out. So Maka now starting to be the one to lap Delavigne on the Zarya, which was happening reverse on the first map.
So they got 2 points off of winning just 2 fights back to back and looking dominant in doing so. But Suquinho Nation have hit a brick wall in the form of Caverna Esports, and primarily the coordination between Cappy and Choazu, who have been stellar in terms of shutting down Jules, with Snail backing them up as well.
Choazu gets caught by the stun there, but is able to stay alive. His team expertly keeping him in this. Jules has to find something with this Earth Shatter if he wants to turn this around. 2:17 left on the clock. That's the one good thing, at least for the one side of Suquinho Nation, is they did have such a big time bank to work with, and the Earth Shatter manages to catch a couple, and they throw the Graviton Surge on top to ensure that they can maybe find at least one. Sound Barrier in as well after the Transcendence is finishing up. Nothing for the Earth Shatter on the side of Choazu, and this is ending up turning into a losing fight for Caverna Esports, but they're going to have ultimates to work with once they regroup.
Actually, well done by Jules there as well. You know, a lot of people will probably look and criticize the way that he put his shield up inside of Delavigne's Graviton Surge, but what he was doing was trying to block Choazu from being able to get that counter Earth Shatter, and he was able to actually later on make the stop. That's big. Now he has an opening for himself. Can they get the stun down?
He has another Earth Shatter, so he built that up extremely fast. He at least stops the Stealth Destruct from flying in the air, so that at least is a trade of those two ultimate self. Rhea is able to re-mech, though nobody could find him in the middle of that team fight. Suquinho Nation having to back up at least a little bit here, losing a little bit of space, but they are able to take down Schwartz, main tank gone for Caverna, and now the kills start to come in onto the feed, and Caverna Esports won't be able to hold it, looks like, for much longer, just have their diva desperately holding on.
No way it happens now. They have the backup of the Transcendence. Yes, they could possibly recontest, but not in time. Suquinho Nation in the map here with time on the clock. However, Caverna Esports have really stepped things up. You know, they come in a little bit late, it seems. If they would be able to put themselves in a position where they can start off the way that they end a lot of these maps, they would be able to look like they are stomping out one of the best teams in this group. And we could easily say we were changing our minds about Caverna coming away from this this week. But there's still a little bit, I would say there are some missteps in the beginning that are still leaving question marks on my mind. Is this really a full turnaround? Is this still a full pivot? Or is there just mistakes coming out from Suquinho Nation and Caverna just happening to play out of their minds at the same time that is causing this kind of thing to just happen at the same time? But it's tough to say. I think if they clean their play up, especially at the beginning of these maps where, you know, they're going for something, I guess, high risk, high reward for some of their defensive setups, then I think that they could find value and just being able to play vanilla and taking time off. When Caverna is playing head-to-head with Suquinho Nation, I would say in the last 20 minutes of gameplay, they've actually looked better. Yeah. They just straight up looked better.
I think you're right about that. I mean, just the way that once they finally got onto a comp that they could deal with what was coming from Suquinho Nation, I mean, it was even because both teams had to make switches, and that's when they started to win. They're going defensively here, Delavigne on the McCree. Again, we saw them maybe come out with that on offense, but then make the quick switches. Do you like this from Suquinho?
I do. I mean, Suquinho, like I said before, going into this map, this is something that was going to be expected from TSN. They're going to be pulling out, you know, something where they're going to try to enable Delavigne on a hit scan threat as much as they possibly can. Caverna is going to do much the same on their attack, but interestingly, it's that same thing that they did on the control map. Schwazu instead going to be playing that rotationally based game with Orisa.
And he's able to keep alive through the stun for the moment, but then Delavigne able to get the shot onto him and take him down. Lubbock eliminating Cappy Mac as well, and the regroup will have to come from Caverna and maybe have to go back to the drawing board here.
Yeah, and as for the drawing board, think about Caverna's approach, right? With this approach, with Orisa, and he's changing it now, and I like this, and I'll explain why. With the Orisa, they need rotational options. They need different points of aggression. They need just different options. Going through that hallway as Orisa, your options are go forward into all of TSN, not going to work, or go backwards and give up ground, not going to work. So I like this swap.
They come through the low ground here, get onto the point, now going onto those stairs in the back, and maybe going to rotate around here a little bit more, kind of making their decision. They do have everybody together. They're going to go up the stairs, try and get those players off of that high ground. Looks like might be the decision. Jules is trying to scout out where they are, and now they start to come out. You see now the rotation happening for Suquinho. They have to come onto the low ground, and that's exactly what they want on the side of Caverna, forcing them up those stairs, and Kel gets the boop onto Delavigne, but Cappy back fell off the map. That's a huge loss. This is still an even fight that Suquinho Nation can try and turn around. Transcendence committed in, feeling that they have an opportunity, and Self-Destruct takes out Chuasu. And this now for Caverna is going to turn sideways, and they're going to have to regroup.
Such an important fight for them to win because they also pull out a big option for momentum adjustment or momentum shifting from Kahlo as well. I mean, not having that sound barrier is going to be so huge going forward. Yes, you know, they will have the Transcendence pretty soon. That's going to be an answer for them. However, I think the bigger one would have been that sound barrier to enable an aggressive push, to put themselves into the driver's seat. Now they don't have that option, perhaps even for the remainder of their attack until, you know, the waning moments, talking about kind of like a last desperate attempt. However, Maka, that's the guy I'm looking at, has to get that Graviton up.
And Cappy Mac falling off the map right before he had Rally is such a huge loss too. So now they come back in. They will eventually have Rally into this fight. They're going back around, same way. They want to try and take the high ground away from Delavigne. They're going to have to rotate a little bit differently because the players are on the other side of the high ground. So there's a lot more room for the dive to come in for Suquinho Nation. And now they quickly just back away. Don't even allow that to happen. Control of the point, though, for the side of Suquinho, or for Caverna, but they do have the Deadeye used here, and it does find Chwasu, so the main tank gone again early on. Maka has the chance to use a Graviton Surge and commits it in. Jules caught in with the Primal Rage and is quickly down in this fight, so there's a chance here for Caverna to get this cart starting here. They do get Darkin out of mech, but he has the self-destruct available to use, and it finds Snail! Huge.
I think he pushed it.
I think you're right. I think he pushed it right off of that cart to make that one happen. Sound barrier used in here, and all coming back from spawn with Chwasu. They weren't ready for it, forcing back Suquinho Nation, but Ran Kiyoshi able to get Cappy Mac. Self-destruct thrown into an area, angled in. Ran Kiyoshi gets Chwasu down, and Caverna's falling and losing this.
This is so insane. They only have 30 seconds left. They have almost no options. It's going to take time to get Maka to have his ult up. Rankiyoshi kept that dream alive for TSN. Joel's coming back now onto the from the Winston, on the Winston rather, from being on Hammond, where they were able to contest that. If Delavinia can get as much value as we saw initially with that Deadeye the last time around, they could end this right here with a full hold.
Looking for his opportunity. Dive coming on from Jules, quickly booped away. Now he uses the Deadeye, knows that the Winston can't get up to him. Waiting for his opportunity. He gets a couple of them and he finds Maka. Maka down early in the fight. Spamming onto that back line now is Delavigne. Self-destruct onto the point. Overtime has started here. Cappy Mac able to stun out and take down with the help of Sylvia Darkin. Only problem is there's not many players left alive for Caverna. We know the spawn's closer for the defensive team here. Not by much, but it's a lot. And they still have players just looking for their opportunity. Only problem is Chwatsu's back in here, diving onto Delavigne with the help of the D-Bait. Transcendence coming out. Ran Kyoshi was able to take Snail Dawn, who made the switch onto the Moira to come back in. Chwatsu, though, with Lubbock down. So there's still a chance here for Caverna in this fight. Backline pressure now onto Ran Kyoshi, but Delavigne with the Deadeye, evening things back up, and Chwatsu gets ragdolled away, and Suquinho Nation is going to be able to hold on to this point and even it up 1-1.
Oh, what a way to end it, too, with that full hold. Delavigne, a monster on the McCree as well, looking phenomenal. I mean, obviously, they put so much of their resources into maintaining and sustaining their McCree. Absolutely nuts. We even saw Transcendence used just on their McCree, just to sustain his life through pressure from a Diva, and then he got off that Deadeye, again finding Maka at the end.
That was, I mean, such an amazing end. I can't even say the words because of how it went. It was just too incredible here, X. But we have an incredible desk, though, that can break this one down. It's a dogfight right now. Even 1-1 between Caverna and Suquinho Nation. So go ahead, take it away, and just break this down.
Thank you so much, Labosco Herix. Great coverage of those first two maps. Caverna Esports, TSN, we are tied 1 apiece. But before we dive into this analysis, we have to take this brief moment to let Caverna's attack on New Bonnie will be forever dubbed Horse Oats.
Yeah, and much like Horse Oats, realistically, no human should ever consume it. So,
It's very right. Very right you are. And with that being said, we go all the way back to Ilios, all the way back on Ruins, more importantly. It's been known as Widow's Playground for quite some time, LaFon, and we finally got to see Lubbock, arguably the greatest Widow in this region, play Widowmaker.
I mean, one of the cool things about Widowmaker is that she hits heads and people die. So, that being said, they did run the GOATS comp around it, and I was actually kind of confused because Widowmaker has to kill essentially 2 or 3 people to even be worth her weight, on the support line. Tanks are not going to get one shot, especially with no damage amp available. So for me, the Widowmaker pick was something that Caverna could exploit and just didn't. And honestly, Suquinho Nation were not punished whatsoever running that Widowmaker.
How would you say, Naori, in your own words, or I guess you could do it in sounds, maybe a couple expressions, the TSN falls short? Because like we were sitting there discussing, that's kind of an upset. Caverna taking TSN on a reverse sweep run on Ilios, it was very, very strange to see. Either TSN, they must have been stumbling, or maybe just Caverna looked that good.
Caverna have really impressed me today. I was really expecting this to be one of the massive stomps. Really, truly, I'm gonna be honest about it. I was not expecting Caverna to show up this hard, especially on Ilios. And I think it had a lot to do with the fact that in the first week, they were still relatively new amongst each other. And there's that trepidation. You're not too sure. You're kind of not sure how to play around each other. It can get a little bit daunting. That added to the fact that we, as we spoke about earlier, Silvera and Capimac doing those weird swaps around their roles. Now they were so set in their roles. They knew what they were doing. They were moving as a unit, and they weren't doing these weird things that we were seeing in their last week.
I think one of the things to notice that Hirix brought this up on cast actually is that he said that Caverna had no real identity last week, and I would hard agree with that.
Yeah.
There was a lot there that they just weren't sure what they were playing. I think the team that we saw on Ilios from Caverna was basically a team that finally cemented themselves. Yeah, they lost Ruins. It wasn't particularly pretty, but then the later two stages, they finally played around the fact that they knew what they wanted to run. There wasn't those weird swap ups. There wasn't those weird like missteps. And I think for Caverna, that's how you have to keep playing to get themselves success in this season.
Yeah.
And I'd go so far as to say that the GOATs, the 3-3, also wasn't working out so well for them because we got onto well and they ran that Super McCree with the Orisa and they absolutely dominated. We've been seeing so much that when they swap off of that 3-3 onto something a little bit more different, a little bit maybe more DPS heavy, they do succeed a little bit better.
Yeah, and I'm glad you all brought that up too, Caverna coming into their own and how they really came into their own towards the tail end of Ilios to make that reverse sweep an emphatic statement to us here on Broadcast.gg. And for you at home, I can only imagine. Like Naori said, we weren't fully expecting Caverna to take it to TSM, but they were just previously taken to in last week by what was Brazil Gaming House, now Base Tryhards. So I guess that's sort of a training in the playground, if you will. But when we come back over to New Bonnie, the more important thing was that TSN woke up that full hold. And like Hirix was saying, as the casters were signing off, they were putting all the resources into Delavigne. Just going back to that previous point, all the way back on Ruins, Lafon, are the resources well managed on TSN just to put it all into one DPS like that?
I think one of the weird things about this is that it's not just the fact that they're putting resources in Delavigne, because look at who's beside him. It's Ran Kyoshi. Yeah, Ran Kyoshi did transcend to keep Delavigne in the fight, but more importantly was to keep Ran Kyoshi in the fight. Yeah, there's a lot of resources being pumped into that McCree, but right beside him, that Zenyatta was pumping a lot of damage into and arguably one of the bigger reasons for that full hold. I think for TSN, they didn't let that first map get to them, which is very important. You can often have sort of that mental downturn when you lose a map that you think you should win. I think for that, the fact that they just got back up on there and had a full hold shows just the strength mentally of TSN, as well as the fact that they've got players in every role that are more than willing to be playmakers.
We definitely have a series on our hands, Naori. Do you think Caverna has what it takes to continue to push TSN against the ropes?
I don't know. Hey, massively good showing on Ilios. Numbani, good defense, but their offense was really lackluster.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm hoping that we're going to see more of that Ilios fire in the next two maps. So if I could just get a late prediction in here, I'm predicting a 3-1 maybe. Yeah, maybe a 3-1. Hopefully we can bring
Not
this
so
to
hopeful.
get to like a fifth map, maybe bring this to a 3-2. But yeah, I really want to see Caverna just turn it around and bring in another map for us.
Sure. And we'll absolutely find out if Caverna or TSN can pull ahead in this matchup. It's tied 1-1. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back on the other end of that break with your casters and your assault map.
Back here on Broadcast.gg for South American Contenders. It's Labasco and Heroix here with you. We have a awesome dogfight going on right now between Caverna and Team Suquinho Nation. Right now, even 1-1 apiece. Heroix, it's been wild already up until this point. Just thinking about how this is going to go moving forward. I think Suquinho is still the team that you have to think, especially with them sort of regrouping there on Numbani, that they have a good chance of winning this out. But Caverna is a different team than what we saw last week.
I mean, they're a different team than what we've ever seen, right? I mean, they were 0-5 last season. They were 0-5 with the absolute worst map differential that we have seen in that league last season. I mean, they were -12, 5-17 was their map score. Not a single draw, 0-5. They didn't win a single series. So throughout that last season, we saw a ton of different issues taking place with the team. Obviously, they just weren't as mechanically talented as some of the other teams, certainly in their group. Looking back at season 2, they had BGH, they had LFO in that group. Obviously, both those teams are continuing their performance into season 3. But Caverna definitely made a big pivot. Week 1, they seemed like they were still kind of having that same sort of struggle going into this season, and it seemed as though it was just going to be a continuation of the story. Caverna just isn't up to par. However, now I think we're seeing that big change where Caverna is really finding their play style. They're coming into their own right now, and it's a big adjustment, I think, across the whole team, where we're seeing, I think, just with realistically 2 changes being made, where they make a little bit of a roster adjustment, and then they also redo who's playing what and how they're going to communicate and how they're going to operate with some of their adjustments mid-game. You're seeing a lot of these things really taking place already, and I can only imagine going forward, going up against other teams in their group right now, like Predators, that they look much stronger than now. Before, it might have been a toss-up. Another matchup that could be possibly winnable is something like Quad Gaming or ENTS. So all of a sudden, Caverna going into Hanamura on this next map here, if they can continue to make this statement more profound, if they can put the period on the end of it, I think that they're looking like a mid-table team in Group A right now.
And you can make a statement yourself if you assemble your team and compete in the Overwatch Open Division. This entry-level program for aspiring professionals will be the proving grounds where players can test their strengths as teammates. Don't wait, those signups end in just 2 days, December 3rd. So make sure you get that done now. And, Hanamura is definitely a place where we can see that happen for them. And, you mentioned Caverna playing against Predators. I think everybody now is maybe on watch. I think maybe Base Tryhards is happy that they got them at the beginning of the season and don't get them later too was something else that came to mind when you were saying that. But I mean, Suquinho Nation, we can't rule out the fact that this is still the team. This is still the team that's favorited in this matchup, and they showed why they should be favorited on Numbani. So going to Hanamura now, as far as I think we kind of just expect a little bit more vanilla to come through from both of these teams. Maybe there's a little bit of creativity that comes out for Caverna, since they seem to be the team more willing to try some other things. Is that the fair thing to say?
I would say to a degree, yes. You're going to expect to see some vanilla approaches, maybe Zen Goats, certainly on things like their attack. But defensively, I would argue that they would potentially be, interested in pulling things out like an Orisa hold. They've really favored the Orisa so far. They got stopped very hard on Numbani, and I hope that doesn't make them shy away from doing things like that in the future. If Schwazu starts favoring that Orisa and they can make these rotations look as good as they did on Ilios Well specifically, then they will be a very formidable team on that composition. Despite that, we're going to see them attacking first. It's going to be Goats. They're favoring the Moira as opposed to this Zen startup, but Suquinho Nation, they're seeing it coming.
Yeah, and they're going pretty standard here, going with the Doomfist and the Sombra as far as their defense. And Lubbock diving in will find himself a Brigitte in Cappy Mac at the start. So Suquinho Nation, this is the start that they would want to have. Silvera just getting chased on. Might lose Mac. Snailot jumps off the map, and it is going to be a hold for Suquinho.
So Caverna on their attack stopped short pretty easily. Obviously, the counter comp, or certainly on this map, I would consider it a counter comp. Having the Sombra, having the Doomfist, and then just diving on top. Caverna They're going to be sticking to this, however. And, despite all of that, they're going to look to try to adjust the way that they actually jump in. But as Delavinia starts generating these EMPs, it's going to become more and more difficult.
Pretty good build-up on that first time through as well. Already up to 70%. And Lubbock is able to find Cappy Mac again at the start of the fight. So you lose that utility with the Brigitte. It's almost kind of asking to lose the fight. And Silvera just keeps losing Mac in and out of these fights. So not going so well for the side of Caverna.
And this is that, just a little bit of disconnect on their approach. Silvera just can't dive in. He's trying to put pressure down, but he can't do it alone, and nobody else is there to do it with him. So he has to make sure that he's using his boosters properly to be able to put himself in a position where he can be aggressive, but he's still able to pull back.
EMP out as the team starts to move in, and now it's just pretty much fish in a barrel when you go into that little room with an EMP.
We see the Doomfist cleaning things up. The EMP setup. That looked a lot like Surefour EMP right there. I mean, everybody was ready and able to follow up on top of that really huge EMP. Good positioning by Delavinia to also find value with that as well. Caverna have been stopped short time and time again. And look at this, Caverna, they're starting to get their offensive weapons online. Look how much Snail has been just oppressed throughout this. He's finally getting his coalescence up here, and they're going to be able to push all that out. But Negafest can easily cancel things out with a Transcendence, so Caverna have to make sure that they're stalling things out a little bit.
And a well-timed Meteor Strike can end things fairly quick as well. Self-destruct finds Maka, and then Kallo as well falling. Chwatsu gets rocket punched out of here. So another good hold for Suquinho Nation.
Still, Caverna holding on to those weapons because they've been forced to. Suquinho has been down their throats repeatedly, and as time progresses, like I said, keep looking for those EMPs as Delavinia continues to oppress that backline and force pressure out to Snail so that he can't get those orbs out. That's going to be huge. Caverna is basically all but shut down so far.
Chwatsu back in here, backs up though, a rally onto everybody here. Silvera getting at least poked down for the moment. Earth Shatter's able to find two into the Graviton. Third Transcendence late. Jules falls. Already an early advantage for Caverna. They might be able to turn this one around, but they have the Nano Boost on to the Doomfist, who's kind of hiding now in behind, looking for an opportunity, but right now in control of the point is Caverna. Looks like Suquinho might just try to stall this out for a moment and then give up.
Really smart play from Caverna. You can see them able to adapt. Yes, it's a very tough matchup to win. When you're playing that Goats, playing even Moira, obviously Zen would be a little bit more hard, I would say, to play, a little bit more difficult, but despite that, the Moira is still difficult, and they're able to quickly turn around. Chwatsu and Maka coming together with two big control ults. Now Suquinho have to battle against this momentum they have created.
Only problem is everybody gets hit by the EMP. Lubbock with the uppercut, and then the rocket punch to take two down, and it's going to be a wipe, but Caverna wisely didn't use any ultimates is the one good thing here, Rex.
Delavinia, they force out the EMP early to make sure that they stop that momentum dead in its tracks. They didn't want to allow Caverna to get a foothold on this point. It's very tough to take back. Suquinho now really want to slow the pace of this next fight. Caverna obviously going to want to put their foot on the gas pedal. So two opposing ideas. We're going to see who comes out on top. Caverna, though, with this composition, I think they can really control the tempo. So look for them to get very aggressive here.
And they're very close to some very important ultimates. Self-destruct goes in, doesn't find anything for Suquinho Nation. But Lubbock with the Meteor Strike takes Maka out, who was so close to getting that Graviton Surge, so already kind of losing there. And it looks like Caverna's just going to go back. They've got the full six-pack of ults, though, for this next push. And no ults are on the side of Suquinho, except Trans is really close.
Yeah, that's my favorite kind of six-pack, is what that is. It's my absolute favorite kind of six-pack. But it is that 3-3 style. So while this does pack a punch, Suquinho Nation, as this dive composition, they can pull away from it, and they want to make sure that they don't fall into that same trap they had in Ruins, where, they caught Jules and they caught basically everybody else in that. If it's just Jules, if they can just put Jules in there, they might be able to get enough support out to where they can just have it be a 5v6 as opposed to a 2v6 trying to get a foothold again. And they did it!
They do get those couple of players inside. Transcendence does keep everybody alive at the very least. Rocket punching in was Lubbock, not able to find anybody. Gets a lot of that, but the Earth Shatter coming through, and Maka's cleaning it up. Caverna looking to find their opportunity to push onto the point.
Now the reset. The only possibility for them to get in here and get a reset is an EMP from Delavinia. He has to get in there. He throws it out. They're all hacked. He gets ripped apart.
not working for them so far. EMP doesn't matter. Meteor strike. Everybody's able to escape quickly. Lubbock quickly coming close to falling. Silvera does have the ult. Was hacked though, so can't use it just yet. Snail and Chuatsu. Lubbock does find Callow, but the self-destruct here. A couple low players on the point. Jules will be able to block away for the moment. Self-destruct doesn't even matter. Ran Kiyoshi can't get back on.
And Caverna finish it out, doing it with the Moira Goats. Again, a different look from Caverna. We saw them last week really, not wanting to often play this particular style. Looking back, we saw them picking different types of things out, right? We saw them pulling out dive goats, I would say primarily is something that we saw from them. Ana goats is something that we saw from them, missing out on key integral pieces of the puzzle as per this typical 3-3, whether it be missing out on a Brigitte and bringing out Sombra, or missing out on a Zarya and bringing out a Tracer. I mean, these are key pieces to the puzzle of being able to function properly with this type of composition. Again, they make some adjustments, and we're seeing a big payoff for Caverna as they're able to close the map out and close their first attack out and have that extra time on the clock to work with later on. Now, on their defense, they're going back to what they've prepared for the season. So Vera back onto the Doomfist, and now it's Suquinho Nation's turn to catch them off guard. Suquinho very likely to play a dive, very likely to enable Delavinia as much as possible. I think they're going to see this one coming.
I think they are too. And just based on what they're showing us right now, I mean, I don't think they're going to switch too much here from what they're showing us too. Delavigne being on that Sombra, that's one good way to sort of deal when there's another Sombra on the other side, isn't it?
Absolutely, especially if you have a better Sombra. And we'll be able to see how these two go head-to-head. But if you have the better coordination and the better Sombra, you can shut their Sombra out repeatedly by just calling out the rotations and finding that recall point of Maka or Delavigne respectively, and just taking the kill for free, because obviously there's no rotation to be made after that. There's no way you're going to get away, and if you catch them off guard, you're going to take that kill. That's a 65 advantage immediately. So Suquinho, I think they can take advantage here.
I want to point out, too, that was great scouting. Delavigne went forward, and you saw on your screen, nobody left from the spawn for Suquinho Nation. They wanted to make sure they had the comp that would work against this, and they made some switches. Lubbock has gone over to the Brigitte. Selvera, though, at the beginning gets Ran Kiyoshi, so that's already a pretty good loss. Jules, though, able to get Chuatsu, so losing that main tank could keep this going for the side of Suquinho Nation, especially to Lubbock getting all that healing gone, and Callow and Snail falls as well. So for the side of Suquinho Nation, they just gotta take out that last little player there, and Darkin going towards the spawn, and now we'll sort of retreat back as they will keep this point clear for Suquinho.
Well, Severa, he goes on a rampage and starts spawn camping Reikioshi, but here's the problem, buddy. When you're spawn camping, you have to make sure the rest of your team's surviving in the rest of the fight, and they just can't pull that off. Something that we saw from Caverna, is their ability to win out these fights where, it's an all-out drag-out brawl. But Suquinho, you see their ability to create artificial isolation in their dive and start isolating members like Kahlo out, where the Ana is left helpless. Cappy Mac is an easy follow-up for them. So Suquinho, their dive is looking very, very good, executing very, very well. Going forward, they have so much time on the clock too. As they get this EMP generated, this becomes very problematic because, again, their dive is so well executed.
But Delavigne getting caught out will stall things, at least for the moment. So Caverna at least doing that, that's one piece to at least to start to chip away at that large time bank.
EMP up pretty much on both sides. I mean, Maka could get this one up rather quickly. You just won't be able to see him get a stealth set up until he's able to, pull that stealth out. They might be able to catch him there, but he's right in the back line. I think Reikioshi doesn't expect this at all, but he gets the right click onto him.
Oh, he was starting to charge it up and then heard the noise that told him the Sombra was there and quickly just flicked right onto him, and that looks like it's going to spell at least disaster, though, because of what Silvera was able to do. So Suquinho Nation can't turn that around, even though they didn't get that hack on.
So this is a possible way to adapt as well, right? I mean, we might know, or they're expecting, hey, you might know that Maka's in the backline, but you certainly don't know that Silvera's on your head. He's going to drop in and find that kill, but now with just over 5 minutes, Suquinho Nation just developing their ultimate so that they can have the firepower to sustain after they take some initial picks. And that first one could be Reikioshi, but they managed to keep him alive.
Well, you have Delavigne looking for his opportunity. He's found the supports, and that's who he EMPs. And now he has Jules with him on that back line. But while we look at the front line here, you see that Darkin self-destruct catches Silvera. So to have those EMP'd players on the back, and now Maka will counter with his EMP, but it might be too little too late to stop this from going in favor of Suquinho Nation. Capping Mac and Maka, though, making sure that EMP does the work that's needed, and they will keep control for Caverna. And now we're down to 434, so chipping away.
Exactly that. Chipping away is the absolute best way to define what Caverna has been able to do on their defenses, to be able to stifle Suquinho Nation and their aggression in a lot of these fights and a lot of these maps that we've seen from them. And now we're seeing a different look. Now it's back to Delavigne, back onto the McCree. Get that high ground control. Allow him to have the spacing to deal with Silvera and deal with Maka. I think this is a good look from them as long as they can get spacing. If Silvera and Maka can really kind of cause some congestion along with Shuazu, then this could be problematic even for the McCree.
Definitely can be. You see that he's getting pressured right now by the Winston. Goes back into the bubble, stays alive. Has the Meteor Strike that can catch him here, and it finds two. Nagelfist falls as well, and Caverna's going to hold on for another one. Self-destruct committed, maybe just to make sure Cappy Mac kept his Mac, I think is what it was for. But still, they have control here, but Caverna losing one extra ultimate hurts.
Suquinho Nation, I mean, they need to start thinking about just starting to pile up the six-pack of their own, right? I mean, having the support ults are going to be super important in terms of, you know, if you don't get a full six-man wipe, you have to make sure that you have the ability to sustain anything that Caverna tries to pull out for momentum shifting, right? But they don't have anything just yet. They're going to have to be aggressive, look for that pick, and just try to sustain out that way.
Oh, they found their aggressive pick too. Lobak was able to take down Chuatsu before he got off that high point. You have the EMP put onto the back line though, so coming back towards their supports is the rest of Suquinho Nation. They get Cappy Mac gone and out of Mac. So now's their opportunity to push back onto point and have control here. They haven't lost the member yet. Silvera diving in towards that back line. Does manage to get Darkin out of Mech, but Transcendence here keeps Chuatsu from doing anything on this Wrecking Ball. High Noon on the high ground 2-4. Delavigne, he's looking for his opportunity, can't find anything, but that's okay. His team is at least in control at the moment. Ooh, but a sleep onto him, and he gets pushed away by Chuatsu. Chuatsu doesn't manage to take anyone down as his kill feed is still going for the side of Suquinho Nation, having control of the point. 2 ticks, 2:26 left to go. It's going to be pretty close to even time banks if they can finally get these last few limbs onto Caverna. Darkin chasing down the supports, hasn't been able to take them down yet, but they're starting to see that kill feed go for the white team in Suquinho Nation. Matter of time before they get control of this, but the time banks are going to be almost identical when it finally does happen. Transcendence committed back in. Silvera with one, and a Mech as well. Goes onto the back line. Silvera trying to turn it around for Caverna here, and it looks like that might end up being what happens. Schwautz throwing the lines onto the point. Suquinho Nation has to try and regroup.
No. Here's the thing. I don't remember exactly. I should know because I took AP Psych. But at some point, you grow out of that whole object permanence thing. However, it seems as though Darkin never did. Kahlo came around the corner, coming down from those stairs with about 2 HP, and Darkin just forgot he existed and instead started approaching Snail in the backline. Anna was able to stay alive throughout that entire fight and gave them the sustain to be able to hold out there. Suquinho, now they have their opportunity. They found another pick onto Silvera to start off this fight, but that should have been a one fight already.
Oh, self-destruct, though, evens it back up. Jules ends up falling here. High Noon was used, but I think he just used it to reload his gun with Delavigne because he had to, because he found Silvera. Oh, headshot onto Maka as well. Delavigne trying to put his team in the backpack. Darkin gets Cappy Mac out of Mech, but Chuatsu into the fight takes Darkin down, and Silvera gets Delavigne, and Caverna holding on with 51 seconds left on Suquinho's push.
The longer this goes on, the more upsetty spaghetti I am at Darkin's play. They're coming down the stairs and forgetting that Anna exists. How do you do that, buddy? How do you do that? Suquinho Nation, though, they're coming back in. They do have some options. They do have some playmaking opportunities, but Maka can stop it all dead in its tracks. EMP at the ready. If he has the follow-up, Caverna could stop it right here, and they could take the lead for the second time.
So close to hitting him too with that flail was Lubach. Just was able to avoid it was Maka, so that almost spelled disaster there, and quickly taken down was Ran Kyoshe. Getting eliminated too was Delavigne by Chuatsu, so this one getting pushed onto though is the side of Suquinho Nation. They're so close to taking it back on in time. Just no, they don't get on! They They weren't able to get back on, and they do complete it with time on the clock. They didn't get into overtime. What just happened?
How is this happening? Suquinho, I mean, I was just so upset about the Darkin play, and I started getting PTSD because we got the exact same POV in that moment, right? The exact same POV of Darkin chasing Kahlo down the stairs. Darkin, okay, I'll give you credit that time, man. You couldn't follow that kill up. There was no way, no how. He turns it back around, jumps onto the point, winds up making the play of the game, in my opinion, so far. And Caverna, with the misplay this time, now allows Suquinho Nation an opportunity to actually take this map away, where Caverna looked like they were going to be able to take the lead for the second time in this series.
And Caverna had players left alive. Silvera was just like a millimeter away from the point, too, to keeping that going a little bit longer. Like, there was definitely a chance for them there. Like you said, that misplay, that's huge. That is absolutely massive. And it looks like defensively, they're going to do basically the same thing. By the way, something I wanted to point out, Cappy Mac, what have you thought of his diva play? Because we've seen that switch with him and Silvera.
This is something that they actually tried last week a couple times, where we did see the swapping here, and it's primarily, I think, because Silvera is just their Doomfist player, and that's what it really comes down to. But Cappy Mac, like I said before, I think he works well with Schwazu, especially when he's on the Brig, so it's just a natural progression from his first pick, which was Diva, into Brig. I think this is just a natural pick for this team.
Maka's not going to get a lot of all charge at the beginning because he was found out by the Diva of Darkin. Up into the air with that uppercut is Silvera to get Nego Fist. Jules tries to turn this around, though, taking Silvera down. Still have players left alive. Ran Kiyoshi, a lot of healing coming out from him on this one. And there, Delavina gets that Cappy Mac out and gone. And Chuansu, 2 off the map, though. Chuansu, huge.
That was massive. On top of that, he's able to get the Primal Rage, which is huge. But before that even occurred, Darkin got ripped apart before going into his mech. He just wasn't in a position to actually get back in safely. Now, 10 seconds remaining. Suquinho Nation are going to struggle even to just get onto the point.
Quickly coming back, Maka comes in, hacks the Lucio in the back line, able to avoid getting taken down, and they can't even get to the point! 33%, all that's needed now for Caverna to win this one.
And they have 2 minutes, just over that, actually. Almost 3 minutes. Wow. Completely forgot about that. It's 3 minutes. 3 minutes, Labasco, to get that 33%. Caverna could certainly get on top here. You know, maybe that slip up, they can just move past it. And they have to move past it here. Now as they attack, I think going back again, I would be a little bit wary of going for that same Moira approach as we saw prior, because Suquinho were just so consistent at dealing with it. I mean, we know that that is going to be problematic if Lubak is on the Doomfist, if Delavina is on the Sombra. It's going to be a struggle. Caverna at the moment is going to be going over to that same approach, that same GOAT style, 3-3 with the Moira. The question, I guess, is if they're going to go for the Sombra. Something they did last week was bring in the Sombra as opposed to a Brigitte. This would be instead optioning out the Zarya. It certainly is an option for them. I could see in some cases how it could work, especially if you can get hacks onto Jules, Darkin, or enable in some cases the ability to just get into the backline. But I think a more consistent approach would be the Zarya. It's still, I think, just gonna be difficult for you if you're still expecting Suquinho Nation to pick out exactly what they have here. But it's the difference maker of the Symmetra. This is different.
This is
right onto the
risky
point
too. They want to get right on, and they do have that right on to point. Put the turrets out. So they have control for the moment. We've seen a couple teams try this before. Hasn't worked out for them. See if it does here. Silvera getting Jules is a great start. And they get all the eliminations. Ian swinging his hammer in was the main take in Chuansu. Darkin loses mech. Loses Silvera's mech, but I don't think that's going to matter. They get those eliminations next. It's Nego Fist the only one left alive, and the Ana coming on, and it's going to be